Well, good afternoon, folks. It's Barry's Best Honey. I'm Mike, and I do bees. Taking that normal walk out to the shed. Let's go out here and take a quick gander at what's going on with the honey production. Well, folks, again, welcome to Southeast Louisiana. It is June 12th. Normally, this is about the time frame on a normal season we would see tallow wrapping up. So any of the normal stuff that didn't freeze out or was sheltered and made any honey should already be done by now. I did see some in town that were just now tasseling out. The stuff that froze, only about a third of the tassels really came out. They didn't grow too long so far. There's a few that did, but they could still be blooming. So all I want to do today is go out there and take a quick look and just spot check some colonies, see what they did. There was a spurt of nectar that came in. I am guessing that's from whatever tallows were sheltered on the tree lines. It didn't freeze. It was very few of them, and whatever wildflower they could find. Some people did report seeing flows coming in, but in our area, we just didn't see it. To compound things, we've been without rain for probably 3.5 weeks. There's been rain around us, but on this particular property, in this couple mile zone, we have seen nothing. Well, we've seen 1/100th of an inch. That was about 3 days ago. They say it's going to rain again, but I'll believe that when I see it. I'm going to work a few hives. It's clouding up. It's hot. It's going to be miserable. It is 95 degrees Fahrenheit here today, and it is humid, and the heat index is up over 100. It is a hot one, folks. So I got to get it done though, so I'm going to go in and do some quick spot checks, and we're just going to look and see if we're seeing any honey. And there's a couple colonies that aren't bearding too much, and they should be. So I want to make sure we didn't have some freak swarms. Wasn't like a big flow came in, but that's not to say they didn't get a good spurt of nectar, backfill the nest, and take off. I don't know. I usually have 1 or 2 summer swarms. They don't fare well when they swarm in the summer. They don't requeen real well, but nothing you can really do. Just combine them to the end of the season and get them on into winter. So we're gonna go take a look real quick. So we're out here at the bee yard. I don't see a lot of bearding today, and it's probably because they're out working. But what they're working is really water. The whole pond over there is a buzz, right? It's a buzz. It is just humming with bees, and it's like an interstate highway back and forth to it. And as I said, you don't see a lot of bearding right now. What you do see is a lot of ventilating and covering the holes because it's just hot. So I'm gonna look in this one real quick. Let's just see if they've stacked any honey since the last time I was in here. I want to say I bottom supered them, so I may have to go 3 supers in. Let's look. All right, let's look inside this colony. Yeah, just as I thought. So this super's been on here for weeks now, during the middle of our what we would call our normal flow, and what we have is pretty much nothing. There's just a little bit of nectar in there, a little bit of capping. That's it, guys. We'll go down below and see what they're doing. This is the top super, so that's, you know, that's not to say they're not filling the bottom ones. Just saying, normally this time of year, 3 supers on a major colony like this would usually be filled. But all right, this one looks better. That's good. Good sign. Good sign. Let's see. But I don't use excluders, so there's no telling. There could be brood in some of these. Oh, that's a full frame of honey. Of course, there's drone brood in the bottom. But heck, I'll take that. I think the bottom super is full of brood, but we'll find out in a minute. So this one is pretty much full. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. That's good. Oh, it's heavy too. Now this one I think it's got a lot of brood in it. And that's okay. If it kept them from swarming, I'm okay with that. But yeah, we're full of brood. So we won't be taking a bunch off of this hive. So a colony like this, we only get 1 full super. That's unheard of. There'll be some outside frames. And what I could do is shake them down and put an excluder in here. That's always an option. And if there is any more nectar coming in, they'll fill it. So I might do that. So I'm gonna go get an excluder, and we got, boy, it's full of bees though. And we might go ahead and do that. So folks, I got an excluder. I'm gonna give them some smoke. I'll smoke it right down in there. Not a how-to, guys, you know me, just a how I do. This is what I do. I'm gonna smoke them down in there, knock some off the brood. They don't like to leave that brood. I'm gonna pull this box. I'm going to put it over on this other box so I don't lose a bunch of bees out of the bottom. All right, I'm gonna take this excluder. I'm gonna put it over here on this honey super. I'm gonna lay this box on top of the excluder so we don't lose a queen out of here. And I'm gonna, just in case she's up here, I'm gonna begin to shake some of these bees out. You gotta be careful of robbing this time of year. Don't want to break any honey loose. She shouldn't be on the honey frames, but you just never know, so we shake them all. But the brood frame, she definitely can still be on. So I'm gonna look for her on these and then shake them down. She has a yellow dot, so she shouldn't be hard to see. So, I'm gonna take this excluder. She's not on here, double checking, she's not on there. So she's probably in the bottom box then where we want her. That'll be easy to find out the next time we're in here because she'll have eggs up top when this brood emerges. All right, I'm gonna put it back together. Nice spot check, happy with that one. It's got at least one full box of honey, and between the bottom I probably have 4 I can extract, and I got a couple on the top that I will dry, uncapped, and extract. This year I don't ever use a refractometer. This year I probably will be using one because I'll be pulling some uncapped stuff. I tell you, I never use excluders yet. There you go, seeing me put one in. I have several on colonies here and there, but when I say that, I mean at the beginning of the season I just want to keep them from swarming, and swarm control, it goes on for so long here because we don't get our heavy flows until mid-April. So a lot of times I don't put excluders on, especially if I'm using foundation. I let them get on up there and get going. If I see a colony that starts putting brood in there, I will shake them down like we just did, and use an excluder. If I have a single that's really blowing and going, I'll use an excluder with some drawn comb. That works well because they're ready to go up. So it's case by case basically, but in general, I don't use them a lot, so I get brood in my supers. I try not to get brood in them. I don't want to get brood in them. This one, I didn't gain anything necessarily. Like, in other words, they're not gonna, like if I were to do that in April or May, it'd be different. We know they'd backfill it. Probably not gonna backfill that, but what it will do is just get the brood out of there. And if there is any nectar, it'll allow them on up in there. The nest should start shrinking here pretty soon as we get into the dearth. I guess really my main purpose is to get the brood out, and if I don't keep her out of there, she'll backfill that with eggs until she does slow down. So my goal is to just get her on out of there now, so that if the slowdown comes a little later, I'm not trying to push her out when I'm taking supers off, because I do like to get back down to double deeps or singles by, you know, August or so. I like to be like July, mid-July going into August, I like to be already down, so I don't want to have to fight brood in a super. So that's another reason really I did it, just to get her out of there now. She's not gonna they're not gonna backfill that. They might if the tallow comes in late, who knows. Let's look at this single. Beetles are really starting to pick up at this time of year. This is where it's critical. Now this colony was semi-strong. I said, well, let's just throw an excluder on and see what they do with the drawn super. So what did this little single do? It really wasn't geared to make honey this year, but I said, I'm gonna try it anyway. And they put something in here. So they've done all right. They filled them. They got to cap them, but there's still space. So with the flow drawing down to next to nothing, I'm not worried about them not having enough space. Although they got this filled out to the edge, but it wasn't even enough to draw. But I'm happy with that. And I think they'll be happy with that now that the flow is pretty much quit. What little bit of flow we had, I think it's quit. So that's a pretty good spot check. I like that. Let's look at this one. This was just a deep I put on. See, beetles. So it's very critical this time of year to to get the beetles have the space and strength under control. So my goal with these deeps, like this one, let them fill these with honey is my plan on the outsides. Cap them over and I'll take them, and then what I'll do, yeah, see that's capped over. I'll take these and I'll give them back some empty frames if their bottom box is empty, or I'll convert them to a single, depending on how much brood is in this second deep. If there's hardly any, I'll take the whole thing and we'll just do like the other guys do that manage single brood chambers. We'll feed the mess out of them and get them into winter. Now at least get our honey production up. So let's look at this top deep. Oh my goodness, yeah. So they basically filled the whole thing with honey. That's fine. So we'll call this this will be a good one. This will yield some honey for us. Yeah. So it's completely backfilled. No brood. I think one frame of brood. We would take the whole thing out of here and treat it like a single, feed it up for winter. She's not going to backfill that too much. She's got a little larvae in there, and that's a little larvae in there. So what I'm seeing is a frame. Looks like 2 brood frames in here. So I wouldn't take this whole thing necessarily from them. I could probably house them in a double deep into winter, or I could make them a single. Take these 2 brood frames, move them down to the outside where there's honey on the outside, swap them for some honey frames, and then treat this as a single, feeding them into winter just like the single brood managers do. Because my plan was, when I noticed we were going to be lacking, was to use the deeps, use the outside frames, and take from them and feed them back sugar syrup if our flow was just off, and it is. So what we'll do is we can either treat them like singles or extract them, put drawn comb back in, and feed them into that drawn comb, and still have plenty of stores for winter. But the majority of my colonies will go in as double deeps. All right, guys, this was one I was worried about might have swarmed, and what I did, I smoked them just now, and the bees just roared at me. And the reason I think it swarmed it last night when everybody was bearding, this one was barely bearding. There's a little bit of honey in that, a little bit of honey in this. I could probably make 1 box out of 2 with this one, unless there's brood, but this one doesn't have much. And they were loading it up, and then they stopped. I think they swarmed, I really do. So I'm gonna check the load. We're gonna see what we got in here. Ooh, it's got a little bit of honey to it. See what's in this top box. There's bees in here, but I'm wondering whether they swarmed. Let me see if there's some old cells under here. I checked them all, nobody had swarm cells, but this one was loaded with honey on top, if I'm not mistaken. Oh yeah, still is. So she might have just slowed down. Gosh. So we'll extract part of that honey. Ooh, y'all way up there now. I remember this one had a lot of honey in the top, so I didn't check the bottom but one other time, and it didn't have cells, but you never know. So we got to see if we got any eggs. I have a sneaking suspicion there's just not that many bees in here, but I don't know, I could be wrong. No, there's eggs in here. So as long as I didn't just roll her, we got eggs in here, we're good. They're just up top. They've just loaded a deep and half a super full. So we're good. That's good news. And look, it's not all about the honey sometimes. I mean, you guys heard me say this season, compared to what we normally get, it's not going to be great. But what I don't want to do is just have bees losing colonies of bees because of swarming and stuff like that. You say, well, Mike, swarming, how you lose bees because of swarming? Well, what happens is in the summertime, these birds have honed in on these hives. These dragonflies have picked up immensely. There's bunches of dragonflies. The drone congregation areas probably aren't as concentrated, but there's still drones. Out here, we have drones all the way through, almost through winter. And your success rate down here for queen mating goes down a lot. I'd say exponentially. Yeah, exponentially it does. It just continues to crater like steps into summer to probably like a 40% rate because of this different factors. So, man, to have them laying queen in there, okay, so they're all full of honey. I'll take some of the honey out, I'll extract it, I'll make sure they have enough, but I'm happy they didn't swarm, have a chance of not requeening. Because in the end, I still want my bees. Just because they don't make honey don't mean I want them to be, you know, swarmed out and just whatever with them. I still need to take care of my bees. I'm blessed of the Lord to be able to take care of these bees and to be able to manage them and manipulate them, and he allows me to work in this creation like this. So I'm relieved. And I heard that noise. It's like, oh, please don't be swarmed. Even the mean ones like that that's trying to attack you and me. They're my bees. Oh my, this box is so full of honey. Oh man, I bet it weighs 70 pounds, 80 pounds. So my take on that is she's satisfied in one single brood box with that population. She's satisfied, this colony is satisfied with the amount of honey they've got stored above them. She's still putting in brood, maintaining, but they've got space, they're okay, they're happy with what they have, so that's a good thing. We leave them alone. They got space so they don't backfill that bottom nest. So I'm in this colony. I went through this one over here, folks. I went through a couple that these are the few I suspected might have swarmed. And I just pulled this frame, figured I'd open it up and see. I hadn't looked at it yet, but that's seeing a lot of brood being uncapped. Looking for any deformed wing virus, looking for anything unusual. But all seems well, but I don't like when I see that. But I'm working to see if they swarm. They got 2 supers that actually are almost full of honey and one that's completely empty. It, you know, just didn't get filled. By the way, no comb honey this year, obviously. Well, she ain't doing too bad. So, just looking to see if she's queen right, because the bees on the bearding aren't that many. When they beard, it kind of tells me, hey, did they swarm? So I do want to pull one more frame from here. Let's see if we got eggs. Got plenty of brood. So if she swarms, she lets us a lot to deal with. So, I don't see a queen on here. Let's take a quick peek in here for eggs. Don't see any eggs there, that's concerning. Another frame full of brood next to it. I'll explain why it concerns me so much if they swarm this time of year again, but a little more detail on what the situation is. Oh yeah, there's some larvae being capped, so she's no more than a week away. All right, milk brood. I've seen a couple eggs. We're good, thankfully. This is one I thought swarmed as well. Again, the reason I thought they swarmed was when they're bearding in the evenings and I see a hive that just doesn't have a lot of bees on it, I look to see how high it is. If it's tall, a lot of times it won't beard as much. And I look to see if they got a screen bottom, because I don't run all screen bottoms. I'm actually getting away from them. A lot of times the screen bottom will keep them because they got, from bearding, got better ventilation. The problem is, if they swarm, what concerns me about that so much is, I told you it's tough to requeen in the summer, but remember, from the time she leaves, their cap sells around 10 days, 7 to 10 days. By the time you get a new queen, that's another 2.5 weeks before she's laying, if she gets successfully mated. And then you've got 3 more weeks before you see the first of her brood come out. So if this queen didn't leave a ton of brood behind and she swarms, there's a long time between the time you begin to see emerging brood. And the problem there is, with honey on top, they become weak, and you know what happens to weak hives with honey on top and strong hives all over. Man, they will get robbed out, or this time of year, beetle mania. They will literally slime a hive in days, in a couple days. So I gotta watch to see if they swarmed and watch their populations. One I know for sure swarmed over there. I gotta keep my eye on their population. They're still bearding very good out the front, but what I don't want to happen is them to weaken up. Now, a good colony leaves a lot of brood behind, so they're continually emerging for those 3 to 5 weeks, you know, so that's a good thing. But it's just a lot of bees are dying too because they're foraging and they're going for water, so it's critical. So I've spot checked the ones that I thought might be swarmed or not queen right, and they're good, and I'm excited. I'm excited about that, because I can leave the honey on them for one thing, let them finish curing it, and the bees are doing good. So all they got to do is make it another month or two and we'll get them all stripped of supers. We're going to leave the supers on a little bit longer this year, not long enough for them to start eating through it. Leave enough honey for the dearth, feed them if we need to, and then we're going to treat them in August. Oh, and by the way, as I'm putting it back together, I'll show you, we do have some nice honey frames. The outsides aren't all the way filled. Normally they would be, but that's okay. I am so grateful for what I'm seeing so far. I never thought I'd see too many of these, and I'm seeing quite a few. The bottom one has got probably 8 full. This one's probably got 7 full. So that's good for me. I'm happy with that. I am super happy with that, folks. Super happy. So this one here is bearding really good. It's only a single. It exploded pretty quick. So I put a super and excluder on it, and let's see if they capitalize on whatever that was that everybody else is getting. Now again, I won't smoke the front, so I don't want to just blow all those bees off the front. They'll just fly all over the place, and that's no good. So I got an app I'm trying out for Justin Ruger, the children's author. I'm gonna lay this frame sideways. I want to see this app in action. Doing a little testing for him. So we'll put it on here, and it is showing capped honey. This is the live analysis of it. So you run it across the frame. Let me back out. All right, there's my frame. It's picking out capped honey. It's going around the capped honey, uncapped honey. Look at that. So it's identifying everything. This has got an excluder, so there's no brood, and I don't want to take it off, but they could almost use a second box on here just to give them some space, some air space, because well, it's a screen bottom. So all I'm doing, folks, I'm putting a couple good frames, couple raggedy frames, and some foundations on here. They won't draw anything out, guarantee you that. There won't be a flow enough for them to do it. But you saw them beard on the front, and just give them some space so they can get some breathing room. This will end up coming right back off, but you know, at least it gives them a little breathing space. I watch for the number of bees, make sure they're not going to be overtaken by beetles. That's another thing. But still, with a little bit of nectar easing in, I just want to make sure they're not too packed down in there. So that's what I'm doing. A lot of bees in here. They should have no problem guarding it, but I'll check them in a week or so. Just kind of glance at them, make sure there's no beetles going crazy. Alrighty, folks, it looks like it's dark, huh? Well, maybe that's some rain finally coming in, but I did some good spot checks out there, and I thought things went well. I saw honey in a lot of the boxes. No, I mean, 1 or 2, maybe half a dozen were almost full to the outsides, but most of them, the bottom box would be, you know, 3/4 full in the middle maybe, and then a little bit on top. Looks like it's going to be a lot of uncapped honey I take this year, so I'll be getting a refractometer in my hand to make sure and check that. I'll dry it in my honey room and then extract it immediately. But I'm very encouraged to see some honey, and I'm very encouraged to see the ones I thought possibly could have swarmed, which how I don't know, because there wasn't really a big flow coming in, but they were there, so that's a good thing. So whether they made honey or not, I'm just glad they're there. So all I was looking for was checking those I thought might have been swarmed, and they weren't, thank goodness. Checking kind of where the honey's at and what we're seeing, how long we'll be for maybe pulling it out. Also checking for beetles. Here's a problem when they swarm, like I told you, if they swarm, they can get taken over by beetles. Well, also, if they're not very strong and I've got a bunch of super stacked and there's honey and these bees really aren't building fast because there's not much of a flow, got to watch the beetles. You don't want them overrunning these colonies quick. So that was the first thing I would check when I'd open the lids and look, was how's my beetle infestation. Surprisingly, they weren't looking too bad, but it is only June. They start peaking here in another 2 or 3 weeks, so it's going to be very important to keep my eye on those honey boxes and those hives that are maybe dwindling a little bit because they're going into a dearth. Maybe things are slowing down, to make sure they don't get overrun. Very important that I do that. But I'm very encouraged, very grateful. It's not going to be a bumper crop. We're not going to be pulling those 60 supers off this year that are full of honey, slam full. Looks like we're going to be pulling some deep frames out of some colonies and refilling them back with feed, making them into singles, as I was telling you. We'll also be trying to get everybody harvested a little bit later this year to give them a chance to cap stuff, so I don't have to do too much uncapped harvesting. But you know, we're gonna get what we get. We're not gonna pitch a fit. We're gonna be grateful. I'm gonna be grateful for any honey coming in that door of that house after what we've seen this year and what everybody's seeing this year. Well, you know, there's gonna be enough boxes to where you can make some buckets of honey to supplement what we have left over from our bumper crop last year. So things work out. We had a bumper crop last year. Things aren't so good this year. The Lord provides. It always works out. So very, very pleased with that, guys. Hey, look, I'm gonna go ahead and go. It's threatening to rain, but I don't believe it. It's done this before. We'll see. All right, guys, well, look, I'm gonna call it a day. I appreciate y'all coming along on that spot check to see where we're at. I'm grateful, I'm happy. It's no bumper crop, but it's a crop, and let's be grateful for that. All right, guys, well, look, it's Barry's Best Honey. I'm Mike, and I do bees. Y'all have a wonderful week, and may God bless you. We'll see y'all later.